November 1st, 1942, Pacific Ocean, 200 feet underwater in a damaged submarine with oxygen running out. We all sat in complete darkness listening to Japanese destroyers hunting us above. 38 men packed into a steel tube, trying not to breathe too hard, trying not to make any sound as depth charges exploded around us. Each explosion felt like being hit with a sledgehammer. The hull groaned and creaked under the pressure. Water was leaking from a dozen places. Our batteries were nearly dead, and the Japanese weren't leaving. They knew we were down here, and they were determined to kill us. My name is Torpedoman Second Class Mike Sullivan, and this is the story of how USS Sculpin survived the longest depth charge attack in submarine warfare history. I was 24 years old from Boston, and I'd volunteered for submarine duty because it paid 50% more than regular Navy. Submarine pay, they called it, extra money because submariners had the most dangerous job in the Navy. I thought it was easy money. I was an idiot. USS Sculpin was a Gato-class submarine, 300 feet long, with a crew of 70 men. We'd been on patrol near the Japanese-held island of Truk for 2 weeks, hunting enemy shipping. Our captain was Commander Fred Conaway, a tough veteran who'd already sunk 3 Japanese ships on previous patrols. My battle station was in the forward torpedo room with 5 other men. We maintained and fired the torpedoes, 6 tubes loaded and ready. When the captain found a target, we'd fire, reload, and fire again. On paper, it sounded simple. On November 1st, we were running on the surface at night, recharging our batteries. Submarines in World War II couldn't stay underwater indefinitely. We had to surface regularly to run diesel engines and recharge the batteries we used when submerged. It was our most vulnerable time. Our radar operator picked up contacts, multiple ships, maybe a convoy. Captain Conaway ordered us to battle stations. I ran to the forward torpedo room and waited. The captain would maneuver us into attack position, then give the order to fire. We submerged and crept toward the convoy. Through the periscope, Captain Conaway identified the targets: 3 cargo ships escorted by 2 destroyers. Good targets, but those destroyers were the problem. Their job was to hunt and kill submarines like us. "Stand by forward tubes," the captain ordered. "Bearing mark, range 1,200 yards, fire 1, fire 2, fire 3. I felt the submarine lurch as 3 torpedoes left their tubes. We just fired 3 tons of explosives at Japanese ships. Now we waited to see if they hit. 45 seconds later we heard it, boom, explosion, 1 hit, maybe 2. The crew cheered quietly. We sunk something. But then we heard the worst sound a submariner can hear, the high-speed screws of a destroyer coming right at us. They spotted our torpedo wakes and were charging our position. "Dive, take her deep, rig for depth charge." Captain Conaway's voice was calm but urgent. We dove fast, pushing the boat down to 300 feet, then 400. The destroyer passed overhead and we heard the splashes, depth charges entering the water. They sank toward us, getting closer. Then the world exploded. Depth charges are 600-pound drums of explosives set to detonate at specific depths. When one goes off near a submarine, it's like being inside a bell when someone hits it with a hammer. The concussion is incredible. Men were thrown to the deck. Light bulbs shattered. Equipment broke loose. The hull groaned like a wounded animal. More explosions. They were dropping a pattern, trying to bracket us. One went off so close that it knocked out our lights. We were in total darkness except for emergency lanterns. Water started spraying from a dozen small leaks where pipe fittings had cracked. "Damage report," the captain ordered over the intercom. Reports came back from all compartments. Hull intact but leaking. Electrical systems damaged. One motor shorted out. But we were still alive, still diving. The destroyer made another pass. More depth charges. This time, one explosion was so close I felt like my brain was being scrambled. Blood ran from my nose. My ears rang so badly I couldn't hear anything else. We leveled off at 500 feet, which was deeper than we were supposed to go. The hull was rated for 300 feet officially, maybe 400 feet in an emergency. At 500, we were past the design limits. The hull could implode at any moment, crushing us all instantly. But the depth charges were set for shallower water. If we stayed deep, we had a chance. Hours passed. The destroyers stayed above us, pinging with their sonar, dropping occasional depth charges to keep us down. We couldn't move, couldn't make noise, couldn't do anything but wait. The air got bad. With 70 men breathing in a sealed tube, the oxygen depleted quickly. We had two scrubbers that removed carbon dioxide, but they only worked so well. Men started getting headaches, breathing heavily, some passed out. The captain ordered everyone to lie down to conserve oxygen. No talking, no moving, just lie still and breathe as little as possible. I lay on the deck of the torpedo room in the dark, listening to the destroyers above and the water leaking around us, wondering if I'd ever see daylight again. This was what submarine warfare really was, not the heroic attacks they showed in movies, but hours of terror, trapped underwater, waiting to die. The batteries were dying. We needed power to run the motors, to pump out water, to scrub CO2 from the air. But every minute we used power, we got closer to having none left. And without power, we'd sink to the bottom and stay there forever. 8 hours into the ordeal, the captain made a decision. We're going to 600 feet. If we can get below their sonar, maybe they'll think we escaped. 600 feet. No American submarine had ever gone that deep and survived, but we were dead if we stayed at 500 feet anyway. We descended slowly. The hull groaned constantly now, protesting the pressure. Small leaks became bigger ones. We used every container we had to catch water. 550 feet. The hull creaked. 575 feet. A pipe fitting burst, spraying water across the compartment. 600 feet. The pressure was immense. I felt it in my ears, in my chest. The hull sounded like it would collapse any second, but it held. Somehow it held. And the sonar pings from above faded. They couldn't track us this deep. After 18 hours underwater being hunted, the destroyers finally left. We waited another hour to be sure, then the captain ordered us up. We ascended slowly, carefully, checking for leaks and damage the whole way. When we finally surfaced, the crew cheered weakly. We survived. We limped back to base with half our systems broken and leaks everywhere. The boat was barely seaworthy, but we'd made it. Of the 70 men who started that patrol, all 70 came back. But USS Sculpin wasn't so lucky on her next patrol. In November 1943, she was sunk by a Japanese destroyer with most of her crew. Only a few survivors were taken prisoner. I transferred to another boat by then. I survived the war, made 22 war patrols on 3 different submarines. But I never forgot that day we spent 18 hours being hunted at 600 feet, wondering if we'd ever surface again. Submarine warfare was the most dangerous duty in the Navy. We lost 52 submarines during the war, over 3,500 men. But we also sank over 1,300 Japanese ships, crippling their war effort. I'm 106 years old now, one of the last surviving submariners from World War II, and I still have nightmares about being trapped underwater, depth charges exploding, the hull groaning, waiting to die in the dark.